Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I want to tell you why I love podcasting. Hi, my name's Tommy Dixon, and I make podcasts for the BBC. I'm a big fan of stories, always loved a good book. But when I started commuting for my first job, I discovered podcasts. I was blown away by how a creative idea and the right mixture of sounds could take you into a whole new world full of incredible stories. You know, the type that make you go, wow. And that kind of inspired me to give it a go myself, which, to cut a long story short, led to a BBC training scheme and a whole new career giving other people that exact same feeling. So if you want to hear amazing stories that make you go, wow, like I did, they're just a tap or a click away on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello there and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, kicking off your week with all you need to know after another weekend of drama. As we record, it's the evening of Sunday the 18th of February. I'm Liam McLeod, and coming up...
Diamondi now from the edge of the box. Oh, what a strike!
Well, as Rangers move 2 points clear after Celtic slip up, what does it mean for the title race? Also...
I think I've been written off most of my life, so it doesn't bother me. It doesn't worry me, it gives me fuel, it gives me energy. I think when you look at kind of my life and where I am now, you'll know I'm a fighter.
Is the Great Escape on for Livingston? And...
they kind of never really went away. They were just in the background, just getting on with things, and now we've got another huge title race on our hands like we did last season.
We'll hear who the big winners were after a massive weekend in the SWPL.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
So, hello to you, and you'll be listening to this probably on Monday morning, so I hope you've got a good week ahead. I am joined for the podcast today by the former Scotland, Rangers, Celtic, Wolves, Hibs, could go on, Kenny Miller, former striker, Stephen McGinn, the Falkirk club captain. Guys, it's brilliant to have you with us on the podcast today. Kenny, we'll start with you. You were at McDiarmid Park for the match on Sunday afternoon, a convincing win in the end for Rangers. The Diamandi goal, really good goal, kind of settled some possible nerves. It certainly, the chances weren't coming as easy to them as they were against Ross County during the week, but Rangers top of the league for the first time in a year and a half.
Yeah, and it was, like you say, it's just, I think it was an expected result. I think it was another decent enough performance. Like you say, I thought St Johnstone done pretty well for that opening 35, 40 minutes. Rangers never had a shot on target and never really had a chance of note in terms of opening the scoring, so they've done their job pretty well, St Johnstone, up until that moment, albeit Rangers were in full control. But like you say, it was a special strike. Sometimes that's what it takes to break the deadlock, and I think once that went in, I think when you see Rangers' record when they score first, they're virtually unstoppable when they get that first goal, and it was just a matter of time, to be honest with you, before we got that second goal. It came from the penalty spot and a couple of VAR decisions, but I think they deserved the win, and they deserved it to be quite convincing, to be honest with you. And everybody knows what was at stake after Celtic slipping up against Kilmarnock yesterday. So it's another step forward, I think, for Philippe Clement and his team. Great form. There's a real belief and confidence about the team at this moment in time. A bit of swagger about how they're playing, and a real airy confidence every time they come into any game at the moment in time. So yeah, but it's first time for a long time, like you say, 18 months to retop the league for a team like Rangers, you know. So I did say a couple of weeks ago after Aberdeen at Ibrox, there was a real sense that there could be something special on the horizon for this group of players and this management team. So this was a big step to get back to the top of the league.
Yeah, we'll go into it in a bit more detail in a second. Stephen, for yourself, I know it's been a frustrating season injury-wise, but your team is going great guns, and I know that nobody's suggesting at this point that the title's done, but that was a monumental result for you guys on Saturday against Hamilton, wasn't it? In front of a fabulous crowd.
Yeah, it was a brilliant day. It wasn't a brilliant second half. It was a tough watch at times, considering how well we'd started the game. You know, we just came out the carts, played as well as we can play, and we blew Hamilton away for 30 minutes. And going 3-0 up, you're thinking, what a perfect day. And then I think we started to get a wee bit carried away in terms of how well we were playing, how many chances we were creating. And Hamilton are a good side, and they scored a good goal in the counter-attack. And then it probably swung the momentum, not so much towards Hamilton, but just in the sense of, right, okay, we're playing against the title challenger here. We were 3-0 up, but let's not do anything stupid. And when we lose the second goal, then it'll just become about seeing it over the line. And although Hamilton had a really spirited second half, they didn't create too much when we went to 3-2. And yeah, amazing scenes the Falkirk fans have had to suffer over the last 4 or 5 years. So to see the Falkirk Stadium at that end, it was really great to see.
Yeah, 11 points clear now with a game in hand as well, our Falkirk. We've got loads to get through with Kenny and Stephen, of course. We're also going to hear from BBC Sports Scotland, Charlotte Cohen, on the SWPL and everything that went on there today. Huge derby match in the title race. But before all that, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Well, as we've been discussing, Rangers have moved 2 points clear of Celtic at the top of the Premiership with a 3-0 win away at St Johnstone. It comes after Celtic drew 1-1 with Kilmarnock at Parkhead on Saturday, a performance Brendan Rodgers described as so very disappointing, saying it's not a one-off, it's happened too many times. At the foot of the table, Livingston have moved to within 3 points of Ross County with a 1-0 home win over St Johnstone. That was their first victory in 17 matches, while the struggling Staggies lost 2-0 at Dundee. Hearts beat Motherwell by the same scoreline at Tynecastle and are now 14 points clear in third place. That's an 8th successive win. And in the SWPL, leaders Rangers in second place, Celtic drew 1-1 at Ibrox. Reigning champions Glasgow City took advantage of that result by winning 3-0 at Motherwell to draw level with Celtic and 4 points off the summit. Right, first up for the guys here, we were talking to Kenny about that win for Rangers in Perth. That Diamandi goal is first for the club, a penalty double from Tavernier. It was now up to 120 goals for the club, which is incredible. Okay, a lot of them have been penalties, but the goals from open play as well, that record stands up to scrutiny. And Stephen, did you see much of the match? And if you did, what have you made of not just the Rangers' performance today, but perhaps in recent weeks? For me personally, having been at Celtic Park and Ibrox a lot covering matches this season, there's a big difference in the atmospheres at the two places right now.
Yeah, I think, when Clement came into the building at Rangers, I think a lot of Rangers fans had gave up in the week, and it was about the next season. But the way he got that Rangers team playing really simplified the game, almost got them back to just really simplistic way of playing, get them to do their job properly, improve players. John Lundstrom is having an amazing season. Under Michael Beale, I thought he was one of the ones who would need to be moved on. Defensively, they don't give much away. As I said, the second goal always crucial in any game to see it off. But as Kenny said earlier, when I checked the score and it was 1-0, I just expected it could finish that way without defending since Clement's came in. So really impressive, really calm. He gave Ange Postecoglou a lot of plaudits for the way he dealt with the media, where he just focused on his own team, and Clement's been as impressive in that way in terms of just focusing in his own business.
Yeah, Craig Levein, the St Johnstone manager, wasn't too impressed with VAR. There's a lot of complaints about the video assistant this weekend. It seems to be par for the course, level par these days. Does he have a point on the two penalties his side's conceded, Kenny?
If I put myself in his shoes, when I look at those back, had they been against Kimpioka going through on Tavernier or Golson, and it was the same. It was the same at the other end. He would have been livid had those penalties not been given. The first one, I think, is pretty clear that is in real time. I thought it was a penalty, and when you see it back and you see Sterling clearly gets to the ball first, he gets his left toe on the ball, puts it forward, and there is 100% contact with Considine. I think not only with the foot, I think even when he slides through into Sterling, I think there was a good bit of contact. So I thought that was a penalty, I said, in real time, and I think that the pictures we see on the replays pretty much confirmed that. The handball, we've seen one yesterday. Again, you're talking about VAR. We've seen one yesterday that was highly controversial at Aberdeen Hibs. Again, probably should have been. This one, I don't even think it was as blatant as that, but because he had, I think Robinson had his back turned, but the arm was still out. It was stopping the ball. For me, I think the ball might have been going in the corner of the goal, to be honest with you. So I think it was a clear penalty based on the rules. I'm not saying I believe it as a penalty every day of the week, but I think on what the laws of the game and how far his arm, Robbie Robinson's arm was out with his body and like blocking the ball fully with his forearm, I don't think he's got much complaint, to be honest with you. In this day and age, there was real contact on the first. Arm was well outstretched for the body, blocks the ball cleanly from going at the goal. For me, they're two penalties. I know it's harsh. His team put a lot into the game, and at 1-0, they're still in the game. But those two situations, as much as they were late in the game, for me, they were penalties.
Stephen, you were at Kilmarnock under Derek McInnes. A wonderful result for them at Celtic Park on Saturday. 1-1 draw, Davy Watson with a late goal. He scored that late winner at Pittodrie earlier in the campaign, as well as a fantastic young player someone you'll have seen perhaps coming through the Kilmarnock Academy there. What's going wrong with Celtic right now, in your opinion, looking from the outside in? What's going on? Having done the game yesterday, it just seemed so flat. They got the goal, but the performance was nowhere near the levels they need it to be.
Yeah, and quite often in the second half, he's down at Rugby Park in their Celtic Kilmarnock game, and almost the whole second half was played in Celtic half. I don't get to watch Celtic every single week, but when I'd watched them the first few months of the season and having played against a Brendan Rodgers team in the first spell, you felt like they really needed to do business. They needed help in the January window. The wingers at the club aren't suited to the way he wants to play. Guys in Maida, Leo Labada, obviously Leo Labada's personal issues, but they both did a great job. The Ryan's Postacoglu wanted to play, the pace, the one touch across, but there's more control in the Brendan Rodgers game, and I felt it was an area of the park that really needed to strengthen. And I just found the two bits of business that had been done really strange. I think Adam Maida looks like a really promising player, a lot of potential, but bringing him into starts probably disrupted the only good bits of Celtic's team this season in terms of the way they finished before the break. Their midfield three with McGregor, O'Reilly, Bernardo. You think that's probably where they had the edge over Rangers in terms of the quality in midfield. That's been broken up to fit in Adam Maida. Nicholas Kuhn, when you talk about spending millions on a player to improve a team, Kenny's been in a million changing rooms where a signing comes in and you think, is he going to play for us? And right away you get a buzz over, can he play for us? And the evidence for Nicholas Kuhn doesn't look like he would walk into the Kilmarnock team, and we look at how well Danny Armstrong and Matty Kennedy are playing. And I just think, I can't believe that they didn't do serious business in terms of trying to improve the 11, and I'm not surprised that Brendan Rodgers is sounding really prickly and frustrated.
Yeah, whereas Diamande and Cortez look like they could be good additions for Rangers. Look, Kenny, there were many people in Sports Sound on the radio in the wake of that game at Celtic Park talking about who's favourites for the title now. Rangers are top. It probably wouldn't be a surprise to anyone to listen and hear you say that you feel Rangers are the favourites, but does it feel like it's ebbing towards them now?
Well, I know what you mean. Not be a surprise to hear me say that, but if you'd asked me this 2 weeks ago, I still would have said Celtic were favourites. I still think they've got, and Stephen's touched on some of their players, they've got real quality players within their team. I just feel maybe at this point in time, Rangers are actually a better team. Celtic may have the better individuals within their team, but I think Rangers are a better team. So it's just it's credit to the players and the manager that they have managed to wrestle this favourite tag over away from Celtic, because there's no doubt with 13 games to go, 12 games to go, 2 points clear at the top of the league, you've actually dealt with it. But again, Philippe Clement's now into a stage in his Rangers career where he's faced everybody, and he's faced everybody probably a couple of times, so there's not going to be any surprise element between now and the end of the season. He knows exactly what he's going to be facing each and every single week now, and he's managed to deal with that with a little bit of inexperience in Scottish football and what he was going to be facing, and he's still managed to put this team on the pitch, get more out of them, like Stephen says, and that's said every single one of them, while still winning. Like, for me, his team's only getting better and stronger, so I absolutely think at this moment in time, Rangers have kind of wrestled that favourite tag away for Celtic, not just with the points gap. You've touched on it, Liam. There is two different feels inside the stadiums at this moment in time. I think at Celtic Park yesterday, they're 1-0 up. Could there have been maybe more? Possibly. It's been a story, again, like Stephen says, second half. You talk about that Kilmarnock defeat in Celtic Park. You look at the Hibs and the Aberdeen performances of late in the second half. They've really found themselves under the pump in the second half of games. And I just think there's an air around Celtic Park at the moment that maybe a lot of fans maybe felt, because it was still only 1-0. Maybe there was a wee something that could be happening here, and maybe a chance could fall for Kilmarnock, and there's just that, it's if they're waiting for something to happen because they're really frustrated and maybe upset with certain transfer windows, summer and January, whereas on the other side of the city, like I said, 1-1 against Aberdeen at Ibrox, I've been in that place. It can get really, there can be tension, there can be nervousness, there can be anxiety, there can be frustrations. See, that night, there was a real calmness and a belief that the team would go on and get the job done. And they did that night. Todd Cantwell popped up with a winning goal. So I just think at this moment in time, momentum is on Rangers' side, form is on Rangers' side. I think the environment and the atmosphere surrounding the team is on Rangers' side. So I think they have to be labelled as favourites at this moment in time.
The performance of the week is between two teams. Kilmarnock who had more than just that one chance. I mean, Liam Donnelly's missed a couple of great chances with headers, which Joe Hart has saved. They've come up with the equaliser. And the other team's Livingston. Stephen, on those two teams, firstly in Kilmarnock, it's a club you know well, you know Derek well. How impressed have you been with how things have gone there this season after, you know, the stabilising first season back last year?
Yeah, well, I mean, the recruitment, Derek McInnes' recruitment, I know that a lot's been spoken about here, obviously Van Boom and Greg Stewart coming in January, but they've got a lot of young Scottish players who brought in from the lower leagues in Scotland. Gazette's Mayo, Robbie Bees, obviously gave David Watson a chance out of the youth system. And all of a sudden you just look at the squad and you think it's as good as anything out there, and he's really building something like Kilmarnock. And they've built on probably, I know last year he says himself he didn't love the season, it was all about just staying in the league, but I just think the recruitment and the opportunity to bring European football back to Rugby Park, something to be really excited about.
Yeah, and for Livingston, Stephen, a massive win for them against St Mirren. It's huge. Tete Yenge's made a big difference. And David Martindale was concerned about what he'd be able to add in January. Well, Yenge seems to have come in and he's kind of helped them turn the corner in 2 matches there, in the league at the weekend and the cup last week. That could just be a massive result for them, couldn't it, going forward?
Yeah, you could see his reaction at the end. I mean, he was really pumping his fist to the crowd, really trying to get them going, because he knows that if he could get close to Ross County and get it into a real fight, and they've got a fighting chance. And also, I think they carried a bit of luck. Maybe that's deserted them at times this season. You think of St Mirren missing the penalty. He missed a host of chances, a couple that St Mirren will be disappointed about in terms of the way they played the game. But he knows the minute that they got that 3 points, he would have been aware of the Dundee Ross County score and the prospect of getting up there next weekend, the chance to go level in points. So I know he said a couple of weeks ago they were already down, but they'd given themselves a real chance.
Yeah, I mean, we should say they've played a game more as well, but Stephen's absolutely right there, Kenny. They can get back to level points with Ross County, depending on results next time out. And Don Cowie's under pressure already, you know, in the job. I'm not saying he's under pressure from above, but what I mean is he'll be feeling the heat from Livingston after that result for them yesterday.
He will do, because when you're in within that striking distance, that one game away, there's no more cushion there. I think he'll be feeling the pressure as well, because it's an opportunity for Don. You know, I know him well, and he'll be looking at this. He's been in the club a number of years now as a player and a coach and an assistant manager, so he'll be feeling the heat that, again, he's stepped into that manager's role. He's had 2 defeats, and Livingston are breathing down their neck. He would have had real visions on kind of looking above and trying to catch the teams above and getting away from that playoff spot, and all of a sudden Livingston get that first win and they close to within 1 game of them, really. And obviously they've got that game coming up soon, so it's a tough time for Ross County, because again, they're now probably the team that's in this longest winless run at this moment of time. Livingston have ended that, I'd say, with a little bit of luck. There was talk about the cup game last week, with that comeback against Partick. Could that kick them into gear? Well, they certainly did this week. They've got that first win in a long time in the league, and it just gets them away within touching distance. As much as Davy all have been kind of conceding the fact that they might have been going, I think there would have been too many people disagree with him. He's not going to go down without a fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you the difference a single result can make. And yeah, those two go head to head next Saturday. Really looking forward to that one. Before we wrap up, let's look at a couple of the other results from Saturday. That game at Pittodrie between Aberdeen and Hibs, 2 each. Could have gone either way, ended up going neither way. I mean, to say they're underachieving is an understatement when you consider the investment in both squads. Both of them just 6 wins in the league all season. I mean, that is massively disappointing, Kenny, isn't it, for those 2 big clubs? And there's a serious danger that neither of them are going to be in the top 6 for the second time in the space of 3 seasons.
Well, you've just taken the words right out of my mouth, Liam. I'm telling you, underachieving is an understatement. You know, when you look at the investment in the squad and you hear about kind of budgets that are getting thrown about now, probably more than either team have spent for a while in terms of what they're paying wages and what their playing budget is these days. And I think at least one of them, and if I was to have a bet on it, I would probably say Hibs will not make the top 6. You know, that there's no way both of these teams are making the top 6, if any of them. I just feel when you've talked about Dundee, you've touched on how good a season they are. Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Hearts have already got third space. I mean, Hearts are actually closer to Rangers and Celtic than what Aberdeen and Hibs are to Hearts.
Hearts are only 11 off the top.
And there you go, and you've got a 22-point gap to like Hibs and Aberdeen. So, like you say, underachieving, and there's a real possibility that neither of these teams will be making the top six, which would be unthinkable for both of these teams at the start of the season. Again, when you think about the managers that they've went through, the decisions that have been made at both these football clubs, it's not the manager's fault sometimes. It can't always be that like the manager's fault. There's got to be bigger issues there. But like you say, they've got 13 games, 12 games to kind of correct that, and they need to make sure they get wins. But when you're looking at 6 wins out of 25 games, if you're going to look at 6 wins in the next 12 or 13, like the odds would be against it. So they've got an uphill struggle, not just to win games and start maybe turning the tide a little bit. To make the top 6 is a real big ask, I think.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Right, let's have a look at the women's game today. There was plenty action in the SWPL to enjoy, and in particular, perhaps that top-of-the-table clash at Ibrox between Rangers and Celtic. I'm joined by my colleague Charlotte Cohen, who was across all the matches today, most notably the one at Ibrox, though. Charlotte, it ended in a draw. What kind of match was it, and how do you see the rest of the season now as it stands?
I think in the end a draw was probably a fair result. Rangers were kind of on top for most of the opening kind of 20-30 minutes. Second half, Celtic came out the traps really quickly, got that early goal, and then they were kind of on top for the second half until Rangers managed to get the equaliser. But yeah, all in all, I think 1-1 is probably a fair result for how the game ultimately played out. And then what it does do in terms of the table is, I suppose it's kind of as you were. Rangers still on top, Celtic still close behind, and then Glasgow City in the background getting on with their business. And it's looking like it's going to be pretty exciting coming into the split.
Yeah, of course, the reigning champions, Glasgow City, took a small advantage, or perhaps a big advantage, come the end of the season, drawing level on points with second place Celtic. They won 3-0 at Motherwell. The game at Ibrox, I've seen, Charlotte, has been described as a great advert for the women's game in this country. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was a decent crowd in, despite, not having any away fans. I mean, it was everything you'd expect from a derby. The last, I suppose, 10-15 minutes were just kind of breathless. It was end to end. And, there was a big moment, Jenna Fife in the Rangers goal having to come up with a big save, and then up the other end, Caitlin Hayes with that huge block to kind of both sides having to keep themselves level towards the end. So yeah, I mean, it's everything you want to watch from, I suppose, arguably the biggest derby in the country.
Tash Flint with another goal for Celtic today. We know how important she was to Celtic last season. They're absolutely delighted to get her back for this campaign. How important a player is she for that Celtic team?
Oh yeah, she's massive. I mean, we saw it today as well. The number of chances she had. She had a really good shot that's just edged wide, I think, in the second half. So, she's going to be really important for them. Amy Gallagher is also another one that I think is going to be massive for Celtic. She set up that goal, and she's, been a huge player for them as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how it's all going to play out, because you kind of can't really call it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the big winners today are Glasgow City. There's no question about that. I mentioned that they beat Motherwell convincingly today. I know Motherwell have had their problems, but if anyone's celebrating tonight, it's Leanne Ross and her players, because it's certainly the result that they would have wanted at Ibrox. And I think you mentioned it there, Charlotte. They're just going about their business.
Yeah, certainly. They definitely have been. I mean, I suppose, they had a little bit of a sticky patch, and I think maybe some people possibly wrote them off, and it kind of seemed like Rangers were potentially going to run away with it and Celtic were going to be the ones having to chase them. But Glasgow City are firmly there or thereabouts, and I suppose they kind of never really went away. They were just in the background, just getting on with things, and now we've got another huge title race on our hands like we did last season.
You can see highlights of that game and all the matches in the SWPL this weekend on Sports Scene tonight, Monday evening, 7 o'clock on the BBC Scotland channel. My thanks to Stephen McGinn and Kenny Miller, and to Charlotte for joining us on the Scottish Football Podcast this Monday. Amy Canavan, Marvin Bartley and Jordan Campbell will be with you here on the pod on Tuesday morning. And remember, if you haven't done so already, subscribe and follow so you don't miss an episode. Bye for now.
The Scotland Rugby podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby podcast.
It's just seismic stuff.
There's bucket hats as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is this a rugby podcast or is this a fashion podcast?
Why can't it be a bit of both?
Rugby. Let's get on to rugby.
There's a lot to be excited about.
Today's guest, John McGuigan.
Clubs are at the absolute bedrock of everything Scottish rugby's about.
The Rugby Sports Sound podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
You cannot help but be so excited.
It's going to be the centre of the rugby universe.
BBC Sounds.